Howdy everyone, it's Sam. Welcome back to the Wobble Enjoy Sports channel. If you're new around here, hope I can get you to consider liking the content and subscribing to the channel. If you are a regular around these here parts, thank you very much for the continuous support. No bullshit this week. Round 8 of the 2023 NRL season starts on Thursday night. It is ANZAC round, and it is South Sydney Rabbitohs versus the Penrith Panthers at Accor Stadium on Thursday night football. On tab.com.au, South Sydney are $2.65 outsiders, whereas the Penrith Panthers are $1.48 favourites. Again, these two sides met only earlier this year, and the Panthers won by 16 points to 10. South Sydney haven't defeated the Penrith Panthers since 2021. Penrith have had the wood over South Sydney for a long time now. And looking at both the team lists now, it looks like that by and large, South Sydney are unchanged in the back line. The forward pack, Jai Arrow starts in jersey 8, Thomas Burgess in 10, Cheekham, Host, and Cameron Murray are the back row for South Sydney, and the interchange reads Cartwright, Saluka Fafita, Hame Sele, and David Mawale. And didn't David Mawale have the game of his life last weekend against the Dolphins? And then you shift over to the Penrith Panthers. Again, their backline is unchanged. Their forward pack is Leota, Kenny, and Eisenhuth. Their back row is Sorensen, Hosking, and Yo. And then their interchange bench is Luke, Lindsay Smith, Spencer Leniu, and Jamin Salmon. The Newcastle versus Penrith game was a contest that I wasn't able to catch, unfortunately. And by all reports, by everything I've read and seen, that the Penrith Panthers played probably the worst game all season long, probably even bleeding into 2022 in bits and drabs. But again, in saying that, South Sydney was sort of the same in the first half against the Dolphins last week. So basically, this is going to be a hugely competitive, exciting game. And this is a game that I looked at the start of the year and thought South could lose game 1 of this matchup. But this game here, I reckon South Sydney are right on top. I reckon South Sydney could have a half an ambush plan on the Penrith Panthers. But that defense of the Penrith Panthers is just going to be way too good. I'm going to choose the Penrith Panthers to win this game by 1-12 because I think the defense is going to be a lot better than South Sydney's defense. But this is a game of attack versus defense, and I'm going to go the Panthers defense to win this one in a beauty, probably even the game of the round this weekend. There's only one game on Friday Night Football, and it is emanating from TO Stadium in Darwin. The Parramatta Eels take their annual home game to the Northern Territory, and this time they host the Brisbane Broncos up at TO Stadium. On tab.com.au, the Parramatta Eels are $2.15 outsiders, whereas the Brisbane Broncos are $1.70. Let's go into the team list news now. And from last Sunday's victory against the Bulldogs, the Eels backline is unchanged. The forward pack, Josh Hodgson starts in jersey number 9, and the back row is Lane, Cartwright, and Ryan Madison. The interchange bench for the Eels reads Hopgood, Hands, Witteramu, Greg, and Matt Dury is in there in jersey number 17. Shifting over to the Brisbane Broncos now, massive news. Corey Oates is back after suffering a broken jaw in the round 2 game against North Queensland, so that's awesome news for Broncos. Corey Oates is in there in jersey number 2, but the rest of the backline remains unchanged. And Jesse Arthur sits as 18th man, by the way. The forward pack for Brisbane, there's another inclusion there. Thomas Flegler returns from sitting a week out due to concussion. So the forward pack is Flegler, Walters, Haas, then Capewell, Ricky, and Pat Carrigan. The interchange reads Pakes, Jensen, Kobe Hetherington, and Martin Tapa'u in jersey number 17 as well. Close game. I think this is going to be a really close game. It just depends how the Broncos travel. I mean, they did travel to Penrith in round 1, but they've done very bloody little since. I don't think in any way, shape, or form since. So this is uncharted territory for a lot of these Brisbane Broncos players. Say, for example, Reece Walsh, Very interesting game, but I can't go past the Brisbane Broncos, man. Parramatta, bro, they had a real chance to put 50 on the Bulldogs, in my opinion, but they only won by 30 points to 4. They had an opportunity to absolutely destroy the West Tigers a couple of weeks ago, only won by 1 to 12. So I don't trust Parramatta enough to put a tip on them. But I'm going to go the Brisbane Broncos to win this one in a close one. Friday night football as a part of ANZAC round in Darwin. Super Saturday, there are two games, and game number one is from Accor Stadium, the second of two Accor Stadium games this weekend. The Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs host the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks, and the Bulldogs are $4.50, and the Sharkies are $1.20 favourites, and that's fair enough. Bulldogs, they are copping the injury curse big time in 2023. They are definitely the walking dead, the walking wounded. So going into their team list news now, Hayes Perham remains at fullback. Declan Casey is in there for Jacob Carraz in jersey number 2. Braden Burns also in jersey number 5. Therefore, Jaden Ockenball, who started on the wing last weekend, he shifts back to the bench in jersey number 15. And the rest of the back line, Averillo still remains. That's interesting that Jake Averillo has been named in centre. It looked like he was done and dusted deep into that first half, early stages of the second half, but he's been named. You'd rest him, wouldn't you? Paul Alamotti is in there still at centre. He's having a strong but very, very tough, unfortunate season around him. You know, the poor young bugger made his debut when everyone's just dropping like flies on him, unfortunately. And then the halves remains Flanagan and Matt Burton. Max King, Reid Marnie, Tavita Pengai Jr. is the starting front row. The back row reads Waddell, Preston, and Raymond Faitala Mariner. The interchange reads Reynolds, Ockenbaugh, Andrew Davey, and Ryan Sutton in jersey number 17. And in jersey number 19, or as 18th man, Carl Oloapu, who was the very expensive young recruit brought in by the Brisbane Broncos. He's been named with jersey 19 on his back, but he is technically going to be the 18th man this weekend, just in case if somebody else goes down like a bloody sack of potatoes. All right, so we move into the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks. And the backline remains unchanged. The forward pack reads Kofusi, Brayley, and Braden Hamlin Uele. And the back row reads Nikora, Wilton, and Cameron McInnes at the lock position. And the interchange reads Graham, Williams, Hunt, and Tom Hazelton. Really cool stuff to see Thomas Hazelton have a game last week. And I thought he actually made a difference. I thought he had a really solid game. Sorry, Bulldogs fans. I gave you a chance last week, and there was a glimpse. There was a glimpse there when it was 16 points to 4, or even inside that first 20 minutes, you thought if they could just capitalise after being on the back foot for the first 15 minutes, and they had that opportunity, I thought, ooh, Bulldogs could have, but they didn't, unfortunately. So I can't tip you this weekend, and I think the confidence that's going to evolve and breed from beating the Sydney Roosters last weekend at home, I think the Cronulla Sutherland Sharks might win this one 13+. And the main event on Saturday night emanates from Queensland Country Bank Stadium. North Queensland Cowboys host the Newcastle Knights, and the Cowboys on tab.com.au are $1.70, whereas the Newcastle Knights are $2.15 outsiders. Oh boy. Oh boy. Okay, let's go into the team list news now. For the Cowboys, the backline remains unchanged. The forward pack reads Jordan McLean is back after suffering a hamstring injury 3 or so weeks ago, so that's fantastic news. We need some power. We need some go forward, and McLean is a very timely reintroduction to season 2023. Cohen Hess will play with jersey number 10 on his back, and in my opinion, he is better suited as playing as a forward. In the back row, Jack Gajewski, Jeremiah Nene, and Ruben Cotter isn't a lock because Jason Taumalolo is missing at least 4 to maximum 6 weeks because of just a clean out in the knee. Bugger. And then the interchange bench reads Tom Chester, Jake Granville, Jermaine Tonua-Brown, and Mitchell Dunn in jersey number 17, with 18th man Riley Price, and Taniela Sadrugu is hanging around there in the reserves as well. Shifting over now to the Newcastle Knights, Lockie Miller is the fullback. Dom Young and Greg Marzu are the wingers. The centres, Dane Gagai and Bradman Best. Kalen Ponga. So Kalen Ponga returns at 5'8", and he is going to play game number 100 this Saturday. You don't think I'm friggin' nervous? Partnering him is Jackson Hastings. The forward pack reads Daniel Saifidi, Phoenix Crossland, and Leo Thompson. Very, very impressed by both Crossland and Thompson with the involvement of their games this season. Back row, Tyson Frizzell, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, and Kurt Mann. Kurt Mann was a warhorse last weekend. And then the interchange bench reads Tyson Gamble, Jacob Saifidi, Matt Croker, and Jack Hetherington with Simi Sasangi in at jersey number 18. Fantastic that Tyson Gamble doesn't lose his spot as well. This Newcastle Knights outfit, bro, they are so fun to watch and they are so powerful and fast through the middle. They just get on this roll, man. And now that Kalen Pong is going to be in there, it's so dangerous. And because the Cowboys are one of the worst teams in the NRL so far as missed tackles, bro, the Cowboys need to really steel up this weekend against the Steel City Boys. Yeah, I'm really nervous about this game, bro. I reckon 10 days ago, when the odds were first announced, I reckon that the Knights were probably sitting at about $2.70, and now they're in at $2.15. Lockie Miller versus Scott Drinkwater is going to be a good matchup. Crossland versus Reece Robson. If Reece Robson still wants to remain in the eye line of Brad Fittler for State of Origin, Robson needs to stand up. Not saying that he hasn't or he's gone backwards. I just think he needs to sort of have himself a man of the match game this weekend, even though he's had himself a strong season so far as well. That forward pack is an interesting battle. McLean and Hess versus Saifidi and Leo Thompson. Thompson's a go-getter, bro. He just doesn't give a bugger about your reputation. And Cohen Hess going one-on-one with him just about will be very, very interesting. McLean versus Daniel Saifidi, a couple of veterans going head-to-head, which is nice and juicy. The back row, Frizzell, Fitzgibbon and Mann versus Jack Gajewski, Jeremiah Nene, and Ruben Cotter. Cotter versus Kurt Mann, bro. Just two dudes that will not die. They could be limbless and they'd still be carrying the ball up, both those players. So that's going to be a huge key moment with Kurt Mann and Ruben Cotter, seeing as both men have the ability to link up to either side of the paddock. That's going to be interesting. Nene and Fitzgibbon, Jack Gajewski and Tyson Frizzell. At the start of the year, I said to myself, Jack Gajewski is a player that I haven't really seen too much of. I'm not too familiar with. And tell you what, man, he's a lot bloody bigger than what I gave him credit for. He's an enormous human being, and I thought he actually went pretty good for us against the Warriors this weekend. And then looking at the interchange benches, I think they're pretty similar. I reckon they're pretty bloody similar. I think the standout player for the bench is Tyson Gamble and Tom Chester and Jake Granville, I reckon. I think the Cowboys just have the better bench in that regard. But the main reason why I'm nervous about this game this weekend, excluding the Kalen Ponga X factor, is the fact that our right edge is going up against Bradman Best and Greg Marzu. And when you include Lockie Miller, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, and even at a pinch, Kalen Ponga will be floating around that left edge, bro. Danger signs, man. Our right edge defensively is the Achilles heel for the North Queensland Cowboys. And with Marzu lining up on Kyle Felt and on the other side of the paddock, Dominic Young lining up on Murray Taulagi and Valentine Holmes, they got some strike, bro. This Newcastle Knights side, it's on paper at the start of the year. I thought, should I include them in the 8? And I thought, nah, I've lost a bit of trust in them. A lot of people actually had that thought where Newcastle could make the 8, but I think everyone played it safe this year on Newcastle and said they're going to stay outside the 8. They're a huge threat. But their run to the finals, even though Ponga returns this weekend, doesn't start this weekend because the Cowboys are going to win 1-12. There are 2 games on Sunday afternoon football, and game number 1 is from Suncorp Stadium. The Dolphins host the Gold Coast Titans, and the Dolphins are $1.70 favourites, and the Titans are $2.15 outsiders. And some people are already saying that this is a rivalry, and I know the history between the Dolphins and the Titans. There was going to be a bid for the Gold Coast Dolphins to be a franchise, but alas, it became the Titans, and the Dolphins said, "You're not freaking pinching that from us, mate." So there is a little bit of underlying bad blood, but we've got to see how their two games go this season. So there is a chance that this becomes a rivalry in the future, but as for right now, I'd just say that this is on the level of bad blood. So we go into we'll go into the home sides lineup, which is the Dolphins. Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, Jermaine Azarko, Aitken Lee, Robert Jennings is in there on the wing, Cody Nikarima and Isaiah Katoa, and the forward pack, Jesse Bromwich, Jeremy Marshall-King, Herman Essa, and then the back row reads Connolly Lemuelu, Tom Gilbert, and that hitman Terminator returns in the form of Felicia Kofusi. Good luck the rest of the NRL, friggin' hell. The interchange bench reads Jared Wallace, Mark Nichols, Ray Stone and Kurt Donahue. Jared Wallace returning after suffering a concussion as well. So that's a great inclusion for the Dolphins. Going into the Titans team lineup now, we've got Jaden Campbell at the back, Brian Kelly and Philip Sami is in at centre, and he's had himself a pretty damn good year so far, but he's moved into the centres because Jojo Fafita has been named on the wing. So the back line is Khan Pereira, Kelly, Sami, Fafita, Foran and Boyd. The forward pack now reads Moeki Fotuaika, Tino Fa'asuamala-Aui, and Chris Randall is in there in jersey number 9. The back row reads Fafita, Stimson and Liu, and the interchange reads Cruz Leeming, Aaron Clark, Thomas McKaylee, and Clessie Hask. Thomas McKaylee, coming from the West Tigers a couple of weeks ago, and now he makes his Titans debut this weekend. So that's going to be cool. Really hard game to tip. Really hard game to tip. I think that we're going to go overs in this game. I don't trust both defenses. I think we could be looking at sort of like a 26-22 scoreline, depending on the weather, of course. If it's a dry track, I reckon we're in for some points this weekend. I think I'm going to go the Gold Coast Titans. I'm starting to fear about the wear and tear. I know that Felice Kafusi is back this weekend, but I do like that Titans side on paper. They would have learnt a lot about themselves after that effort against the Brisbane Broncos. Their first half was great, and then Brisbane Broncos decided to come out of the sheds and go, oh, wait, now we're awake. And then they obviously put 40-odd points on the Gold Coast Titans. So, yeah, it's going to be a pretty spicy game. It's not a rivalry. It could be. I'm going to go the Gold Coast Titans. I think they would absolutely hate to be that older brother that goes down to little brother like the North Queensland Cowboys did a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I think I've got the Gold Coast Titans winning this one in a thriller. And the second game on Sunday, for the first time this year, is coming to us from Campbelltown Stadium. The West Tigers host Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. The Tigers are $3.20 outsiders, and the Manly Sea Eagles are $1.36. And the Tigers' record at Campbelltown Stadium is not good at all. I think it's like only 2 wins from the past 10 matches. It's not very bloody good at all for the West Tigers. Now, I look at the West Tigers team list. Right now, I haven't seen it up until just then, and I apologise to this man if I butcher your name, but in at fullback is a young man named Jareem Buller. Looks like he's going to make his first grade debut this weekend. Absolute best of luck to you, young man. Fantastic. So that means Charlie Staines has been shifted from fullback to the winger spot, so he is in jersey number 2. Don't know if that's unfair or not. Staines had himself quite a good game against the Parramatta Eels, save for that last moment. So I don't know if that's unfair or not, but Staines still remains in the starting back line, and he's in jersey number 2 with Junior Tupou in a jersey number 5, and Stafford Toa and Asu Kapoa in there in the centres. The halves pairing, of course, is Wakeham and Brooks. Unfortunately, Adam Dewey is expected to miss all the way up until round 10 of next year with an ACL injury, his 3rd. So swiftest, quickest of recoveries to that bloke, fair dinkum. The forward pack is Uto Ukamanu, Coruscant and Clemmer. The back row is Papali'i, John Bateman and Fanua Pole. And the interchange reads Dane Laurie, Joe Offahengawi, Alex Tawal, and Tommy Talau in a jersey number 17 for the West Tigers. Now shifting over to the Manly Sea Eagles side, Tom Turbo is in there at fullback. The rest of the back, the back five is unchanged, but Josh Schuster is there finally. It must have been a massive cork, bro. He's been named in there at jersey number 6, so he'll start at 5'8", partnering DCE. And then the forward pack reads Paseka, Croker, Tom Trbojevic, Ola Kawatu, Ethan Bullymore starts in jersey number 12, and Josh Aloye is in there at lock position. The interchange reads Samuela Fainu. They are Fainu. Okay, in jersey number 14, Sean Kepi, Aaron Woods, and Tofafoa Sipley. And Tofafoa Sipley had a good year last year, I thought. A couple of games here or there that were hit and miss. So it was actually really good to see him come back into the fold this past weekend against the Melbourne Storm. And I thought he made a difference too with a couple of key offloads as well. I get the sniff of an upset in this game. I don't know why. I don't even want to even go down that path. I'm sort of like standing at a fork in the road, and I just get this sniff of some drama brewing in this game, bro. But Manly have defeated West Tigers at Campbelltown Stadium within the past 3 years, or even last year, I think it was. So they've had some recent success against the West Tigers at Campbelltown Stadium. And for that reason alone, and for them also defeating the Melbourne Storm in some pretty nice fashion, I am going to go the Manly Seagulls, but I'm going to keep it down to 1 to 12. I just get this sense about the West Tigers this weekend that they're going to be pretty bloody competitive against the Manly Seagulls after having a bye this past week. And then we move into Tuesday, one of the biggest, most important days on the NRL calendar. It's ANZAC Day. And game number 1 is the Sydney Roosters versus the St. George Illawarra Dragons from Allianz Stadium. And this match is the first edition to take place at Allianz Stadium, or at the newly renovated Allianz Stadium. And on tab.com.au, the Roosters are $1.25, whereas the St. George Illawarra Dragons are $4. Let's go into the team list news. Tedesco, Tupou, Suoli'i, Paul Momirovski, and Jackson Polo. And the reason why Momirovski is the centre, is that Sam Walker has been dropped. He's been dropped. So Joseph Manu is the 5'8", and Luke Keary is the halfback. The forward pack reads JWH, Smith, Collins. The back row is Egan Butcher. Angus Crichton returns, baby. Oh, man. And Victor Radley is the lock. The interchange for the Easts reads Drew Hutchison, Terrell May. Sotili Tupanua returns from his ACL injury this week. Oh, that's fantastic news for that bloke. He was in great form before he copped an injury. That's a massive return, bro. I hope he absolutely kills it. Sotili Tupanua this weekend. And Matt Lodge is in there in jersey number 17. Going over now to the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Tyrell Sloan is at fullback. Finge and Tautau Moga are the wingers, with Sully and Lomax in the centres. Amone and Ben Hunt is the halfback. The forward pack reads Musgrove, Imbai and Laurie. The back row reads Murdoch, Masilla, Bird, and DeBellin. The interchange bench reads Little, Molo, Couchman, and Josh Kerr. I am really sorry to just be so quick about this game, but Sydney Roosters going to win this one 13+. And the final game of the week is from Amy Park on Tuesday night, the annual traditional Storm versus Warriors clash. And on tab.com.au, the Storm are favourites at $1.26, whereas the Warriors are huge outsiders at $3.90. Pretty large on the New Zealand Warriors, considering their form in 2023. But as we know, the Warriors in this clash over the past 6 or 7 years have been pretty diabolical by and large. So let's go into the team list news for the Melbourne Storm. And Nick Meaney returns from concussion in at fullback. Warbrick, Coates are the wingers. The centres, Smith and Olam. The halves pairing is Munster and Hughes. Going into the forward pack. Whoa, dude. Nelson Asafa Solomona returns. He's back in jersey number 8. That's a huge return for the Storm, man. Grant and Welch are the props, are the other two men in the front row. And the back row reads Liero, Katoa, and Josh King. The interchange reads Garlic, McDonald, Eisenhuth, and Tarek Sims. Man, I wasn't anticipating Nelson Asafa Solomona for another fortnight. Man, that is a huge in. Going into the Warriors team list news now. If me freaking Going into teamless news for the New Zealand Warriors, and C&K is in there at fullback. The wingers are DWZ and Kossi, Montoya and Pompey are the centres, and then the halves pairing remains as Walker and Sean Johnson. The forward pack reads AFB, Lussick and Tavanga. The back row is Ford. Niokure returns, which is a great in for them, and Tohu Harris is in the lock position. Interchange reads Sirinen, Curran, Bunty Afoa, and Tom Arley. So Vilea is popped into jersey number 18. Tel Picky is dropped as well. Yeah, man. Look, I really want to tip the Warriors. In a year of upsets, I believe that this is a game that they've penciled in as one of their 2 or 3 ambush card games. So I think the Warriors are going to be absolutely giving this one all they got, all they friggin' got. And I do think they're a chance. I think they are definitely a chance if they can just remain tough for 60 odd minutes defensively, restrict the Storm to 2 tries inside the first 60 minutes. I think maybe in the back end they could score some points, but Nelson Asafa-Solomona is just an absolute game-changing tip. He is an absolute game-changing player, and while I want to tip the Warriors, I've got to play it safe, and I'm going to go the Melbourne Storm. Not 13 plus. I think they're going to just scrape by with a victory on Tuesday night. Yo, that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for the continuous support over the past couple of weeks. It does mean a lot. It does. But on Anzac Day, make sure that you have yourselves a moment's silence and respect and thank the diggers. And yeah, lest we forget, take care, everybody. Adios.